Alba and Alliance for Unity.
Let's look at the broken down votes. Let's see exactly how many votes these people got.
You've got Alba at 1.66, and you've got All for Unity at 0.86. So, I mean, in any measurable sense of the word, it's an electoral failure for Salmond and for our favourite.
And I just
Lizzie Galloway.
23,000, just over 23,000 votes. But their leaflet, when you look at this, just becomes more and more of a joke. I haven't actually read the leaflet, but I just saw the headlines where it was 77% of voters have heard of George Galloway. 20% of voters feel George Galloway provided the strongest opposition to the SNP.
Yeah,
and it's like, but who? No, clearly,
not in reality, is it?
This is very much like those Lib Dem polls, which were a bit suspect in the 2019 election. They were like, we're miles ahead. We could be the next prime minister, and Joe Swinson and all that. And it's just, I mean, there were minor, but it's just the way both of those parties went in with all these kind of grand statements.
Oh yeah,
and just didn't connect at all with actually. It's kind of what we knew, but
it was an electoral humiliation at the end of the day. Alex Salmond, I'm not a fan of. Some people absolutely love him, but it turns out that's about 1.66% of the population. So that's not even going to get you a seat. That's not going to get you close to a seat. And George Galloway was, talking about, destroying the Greens and the SNP and bringing down Labour. And it's like, well, all right, not on 0.86% of the vote, you're not, buddy. So I think what that shows is Scotland looked at these people, got a pretty good measure of them, and went, you know what? I think we're all right. I think we'll, because I mean, this is the thing. What's the offer? Basically, Alba took a certain part of a certain wing of the SNP, a very small wing of the SNP, and they've taken a part of the SNP. As a member, I didn't really like that part of the SNP much anyway. It's the let's go for independence, fuck everyone, we don't need to explain ourselves, we're doing it tomorrow, balls to the wall, baby, no plan, yeah, baby, let's go because we've got the right. It's like, yes and no. If you're not going to do this in an organised and logical way without fucking being horrendous people and pissing off everyone, you're probably not going to get what you want. And the fuck you, we're going to do it anyway argument has a certain amount of emotional pull, but at the same time, it doesn't survive contact with reality very well.
Exactly.
I think that's what we've seen here is that, a certain amount of people to go, yeah, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I'll vote Alba. Fuck it, let's do it anyway, whatever. Reality be damned, because if we say we're going to do it, it's going to happen kind of thing. It's like, yeah, to a certain degree, but no. And it turns out 1.6 is the end result there.
Yeah, and I just think they're just kind of the Change UK of Scottish politics, really. Except what's even more embarrassing is that they failed in a proportional system, and not purely first past the post. So exactly. It's even more of a fall on their face, really. And
and I know I don't know. I followed them on Twitter just to sort of see the sort of stuff that they were saying and their followers were saying, and it's pretty toxic, man. It is pretty toxic. I was like, you know what, I agree. I want independence for Scotland, and I don't want to. Just because people I might disagree with someone on some other issues. If big picture we want the same thing, I'm willing to build a bridge. But I looked at the sort of people that were saying they were going to vote for Alba, and I was like, I don't identify with you at all. I don't even agree with your version of independence, because it's not even something I can even understand, because it's not grounded in reality. So it's like there was no common ground I could find with a lot of these Alba people, and that makes me sad to a certain degree, because it's like, well, actually, ultimately, big picture,
broadly speaking,
we want the same thing, but it just the toxicity was horrendous, and like the misogyny and vitriol against Nicola Sturgeon was vile, and against the Greens, the stuff they were saying about Patrick Harvey was just horrifying, and then It's just like this is not a productive way to do politics, guys. If you're just going to be a little writhing cesspool of negativity, we want it now, and we're going to slag off everyone until we get it.
We're going to throw all of our toys out the pram.
Yeah. It's like, where's that going to get you? Nowhere. And then it got them nowhere. So I'm kind of glad, if I'm honest.
Exactly. It was doomed from the. It was kind of doomed from the start, especially. But then you think about it, like we mentioned earlier, it could have been a good strategy to a certain extent.
That's the thing. They weren't wrong. They were not wrong with the list vote strategy.
Yeah, but yeah, the person bringing that message does matter.
The wrong person.
And I think
Alex Salmond is the most unpopular politician in Scotland.
More than George Galloway.
More than George Galloway. More than Boris Johnson. He is so much more unpopular. He has a net negative 73% approval rating.
That's bad.
He is unquestionably, across the board, any voter, he is unpopular.
And you can't galvanise any kind of mass movement behind you with an approval rating like that.
Exactly.
That's worse than Corbyn. That's worse than. Although Keir Starmer now, I found this out the other day. His approval rating is worse than Corbyn's was.
Wow.
Even worse. Can you believe that? But anyway, that's another subject. That's a historically bad vote approval rating, and you can't win any kind of popular support.
No, you're right, and that's the thing. You might be saying something that makes sense. You might be saying that something that makes sense, but if the mouth it's coming out is universally disliked, there's no way anyone's going to listen to you.
That. No, exactly. Just because you say the sky is blue doesn't mean But yeah, it was quite spectacular to watch those parties fizzle out and burn. Because I watched a bit of George Galloway's because he was streaming on Twitter, and he was like quoting Gandhi, talking about first they laugh at you, then, and I was just like, so you're quoting Gandhi, not seeing the irony as someone who was anti-imperialist, anti the Britain and things like that, for your pro-Britain unionist, keeping together this vehicle which historically colonized the world and to this day is militarily supporting things going on in Israel and Yemen and things like that, and you just don't see the irony that you're quoting someone who would be totally against what the current UK foreign policy and all that would be.
It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
And of course he's too blind to even see that his whole career of saying I hate Tories and then standing next to them comes up here. He doesn't see the irony there either, so of course he wouldn't see the irony in quoting Gandhi for his pro-unionist party. But
his lack of awareness is truly staggering. It's just incredible. I wish I just view him as like a
meme.
Like a performance piece now. I'm just fascinated to see where it's going to end up, because it's like, surely this is the end point, and then he always manages to escalate it further. So he's living in an alternative reality, and I love him. He's fine. If he wants to
we still follow him.
If he wants to take 0.8% of the vote, which probably all went from the Conservatives anyway. Yeah. Good luck to him. Go in peace, my brother. Go in peace.
Hoovers up Conservative votes.
Yeah, just to sort of summarise then, I think Alba's going to stick around, because I think Alex Salmond is a prime example of someone who's now bought their own bullshit and thinks they are the messiah. I think they're going to compete local elections. I think Alex Salmond's not going to be willing to walk away and just admit that he's not relevant anymore and is universally disliked. I think this might be the end for George Galloway. In Scotland, at least, I feel like he might go back down to England now. He's tried in Scotland, that hasn't worked. He's had more traction down in England in the past, so maybe he'll go back there. But
he had success in Bethnal Green in East London, and then also Bradford, I think. Well, there were some big kind of seats that he managed to win. And I think those successes of being kind of an independent party, I forget what the party name was. It the Respect Party, I think.
Respect, yeah.
I think those kind of historic, because there are quite historic victories for an independent party to come in and win that. Have kind of got him too big-headed to now. He really thought he could be mayor of London back in 2016 or 2017, and now he really thought he could challenge the SNP up here. Yeah, I think the Alba Party will stay around, but I think they'll very much play a kind of
Oh, there'll be a minor role.
a
It's not going to ever
UKIP
be major.
or a UKIP or Reform UK kind of role that is getting played out in the rest of the UK. They will maybe get a percent or two of the vote, but I think they will only become an actual political force if the SNP completely falls apart and makes a big deal of anything. If they just like I think that's the only time they'll ever become a political force. But I think that you're right; they will kind of be echoes of them around.
This is the thing fundamentally with Alba. I don't see how they're going to gain many more votes from SNP and Green voters, because the platform and ideology and the sort of rhetoric around Alba is in many cases diametrically opposed to what the Greens and the SNP are about, if you exclude independence. Like, they agree on independence, and then you look at anything else that these people were talking about, and it's like, as a Green voter, you wouldn't vote for them, and the majority of SNP voters wouldn't vote for them. So who are you appealing to?
Would you say that maybe the Alba Party is very much like maybe the SNP were 30 years ago when they were considered like the Tories kind of thing? They're very much kind of a renaissance of that SNP which no longer exists.
I hadn't thought of that.
Maybe
you might be right. That's actually not a bad that's not a bad analogy. I think you're right. I think they're harkening back to you're right. I think they're harkening back to a period that, again, it's like we were talking about shifting political landscape. The SNP is a left-wing party now, quite heavily so. I mean, borderline socialist, and
good, which is good,
which is great. I'm happy with that. I would, if they weren't, I wouldn't vote for them. If they weren't, if they were still what they were 34 years ago, they wouldn't have my vote. But I think you're right. I think Alba is very much almost a right-wing party that wants independence, and you look at their policies, and there's topics that I'm not equipped to talk about, like the trans debate and that sort of stuff. But some of the things they were saying, you were just like, Jesus Christ, lad. I mean, I've not got a dog in this fight, but you people need to calm the fuck down. Like, you seriously need to calm down.
I don't have a dog in this fight, but when you see someone who really, really does have a dog in this fight, you're like,
Jesus Christ. And when they were like accusing Green and SNP MSPs of being paedophiles and all this sort of stuff, it's just like, all right, lads. That's the thing. Yeah, I don't think that rhetoric's going to work for them, and I don't understand where they're going to get their votes, because the Conservative voters aren't going to vote for them. Labour ain't going to vote for them. Lib Dems aren't voting for them. I think they've already gotten all the SNP voters that are going to vote for them already, and it's about 2%.
Yeah.
And no Greens are going to vote for them, because they literally, one of the first things Alba did when they came out as a party was immediately start slagging off the Greens and saying they were going to destroy the Greens electorally. So it's like you've reached your ceiling already. Like, there's nowhere to go. So they can hang around, but I don't think they're going to be relevant.
Definitely. No, I was just thinking about that because if we're looking for a German comparison here, I think the AfD are very much just a rebirth of a kind of 80s, 90s CDU. If you actually look at what they're saying word for word 20, 30 years ago, what the CDU were saying. And I think maybe there could be a comparison to be drawn there. And not that we're comparing the SNP really to the CDU, but
the CDU,
it's definitely,
But in terms of parties shifting and then a new party coming to fill that space.
Yeah, filling that old space that they once had,
Yeah. Which might no longer be really relevant, but they're definitely trying to fill that space,
And which we've seen does have a ceiling, and that ceiling does not mean power, because, being regressive and trying to go back to where you were isn't a vote, really.
It's what Labour seems to want to do right now, and it's not working for them. And if the play for Alba is to try and recreate this sort of tartan Tory but independent supporting thing, it's not going to work.
Because that's definitely what it feels like, doesn't it? Because it is. I mean, can you name? Are any of the Alba officials that we've seen really young and
No,
like
it's not.
Seen maybe a Murray Black or who's the ginger chap in the Green Party? I think
Oh
he's
yeah, yeah, exactly.
25. They're kind of young faces on these independence parties, whereas on the Alba Party, they were kind of
Old
old.
and crusty, mate. It's an old and crusty party, and
Which
yeah,
then would make sense if we look at them through the lens of you're a hangover of a bygone SNP era.
yeah. I think that's a great comparison. It hadn't crossed my mind, but when you lay it out like that, I think it makes complete sense.